Hello and welcome back to the Greenhorn Photo Taker for the final episode in a 3-part series highlighting a blockbuster California road trip. To catch you up on episodes 1 and 2, it is a 6.5-hour drive from our trip origination in Las Vegas to our starting destination of this episode, Madera, California in the Central Valley. That's the direct route anyway. Instead, we took the longer 19.5-hour scenic route by way of the Valley of Fire, Death Valley, Sequoia National Park, and Kings Canyon National Park. Next on the list was the arduous trip north and west through the Central Valley to Point Reyes National Seashore, Muir Woods, San Francisco, and the iconic Pacific Coast Highway through Big Sur. In truth, it is simply too much to show and explain in a single video, so you'll have to bear with the frantic pace I set. The 4+ hour ride to the coast was about as boring as one could expect, despite some sporadic interesting scenes along the way. And the anticipation to see the Pacific Ocean, which would be a first for my daughter, didn't help either. Where better to start than the Point Reyes National Seashore, often cited as an underrated gem in the national park system. It may be an underrated gem, but we didn't find out on this day, as virtually every coastal view was completely obscured by thick rolling waves of ocean-enhanced fog. No lighthouse, no crashing waves. We took a small walk around the Chimney Rock area, enjoyed a few minutes at the Cypress Street Tunnel, and in a desperate attempt to find excitement, even drove 40 minutes to see some elk. We found them next to a parking lot, but even they were flawed in our minds since they were free of antlers. The scenic drives throughout the park were good, likely even great if we hadn't just experienced the mind-boggling desert and mountains, but they ultimately left us both unsatisfied. I think I'm left with the following impression. The National Seashore is probably like the Delaware Water Gap in the following way. If you were local, and you know when to visit and when to avoid crowds and bad weather, it's probably your favorite place to explore, just like the Gap is my favorite place. Otherwise, it sits in the shadow of the more well-known national and state parks. At least that was our impression. Further south, we hit Muir Woods, another significant disappointment. Please understand, this place is stunning from a natural standpoint, but despite a relatively new reservation system, it was crowded to the point of absurdity, and definitely took away from our redwood experience. Further south yet, we couldn't wait to see the Golden Gate recreational area and take in the impressive views of the Golden Gate Bridge from the bluffs on the northern side. But again, fog completely shrouded our view. We settled on a tour of Battery Spencer, but while the love locks were touching, we just wanted to see the bridge. At this point, feeling cursed and crowded, we headed to San Francisco. With limited time, we went straight to the most culturally significant site in the metro area, the Full House House. In a quick drive through the city, we also made time for Lombard Street, and it really was a hoot, definitely worth a stop. And a side note, as an East Coaster, it is truly strange to drive on those hills in a city environment. At this point, we were about 36 hours out of the mountains, and I was starting to feel hesitant about my route planning and research, but press on we must, and we started out for the Pacific Coast Highway. Life immediately improved thereafter. In our last day and a half, we saw 240 miles of the Pacific Coast Highway, San Gregorio State Beach, the Santa Cruz Boardwalk, 17-mile drive, Pfeiffer Beach, McWay Falls, Piedras Blancas Elephant Seal Rookery, Morro Bay, San Luis Obispo, tackled credit card fraud, lost a debit card, had a flight delayed, had a flight canceled, bribed a rental car service rep, had another flight delayed, and unknowingly booked a hotel next door to an adult bookstore. We also heard and saw an uncountable number of seals barking, had liquid nitrogen ice cream, enjoyed an epic sunset, encountered the largest single piece of seaweed of our lives, and burned rubber in a souped-out minivan. That's how you end a trip. Like I said, I can't show all that footage and keep this video to a manageable length, so let's stick to the best highlights for now. If I had to choose the best location, Pfeiffer Beach would get my vote. Despite an ocean temperature of a less than pleasant 52 degrees, the scenery was exquisite. The jagged rocks, the crashing waves, the coastal ridge behind us, they all resulted in an atmosphere I thought was just about perfect. I normally despise the beach, and the heat and sun don't do me any favors. But here, with air temp in the low 70s and no reason to swim, I could get behind a beach day or two each week. My daughter preferred 17-mile drive, and more specifically, the colorful sunset at Pescadero Point, which was an absolute top trip memory for the both of us. We shared the moment with a few others in silence and muted conversation. Earlier on 17-mile drive, Bird Rock was full of seals as usual. Though we both thought the Elephant Seal Rookery outside of St. Simeon does have it beat. These elephant seals are massive, sometimes aggressive with each other. And they're almost always as lazy as a cat in the sun. Overall, the Pacific Coast Highway more than lived up to its billing. The scenic driving is world-class, and there are countless stops along the route to get you out of your car. Between beach waterfalls, almost constant, expansive views, and an ever-changing geography, the sublime almost becomes routine. Here are my favorite photos along the one. All good things must come to an end, but road trips, as in life, are about the journey and not the destination. From the blistering 120-degree heat of the Mojave to the cool and damp 50 degrees of the Point Reyes Peninsula, California treated us well. Some days I think on the cabin in the Sierras where we worried my beef jerky would attract bears. Other days, it's learning that harbor seals have claws. What I may remember most, though, was the effortless and enjoyable long stretches of downtime that I spent with my daughter, even despite the fact she created a sus list of questionable moments I put her through. Thank you so very much for watching. Get out and explore.